now it is. Okay. Budget philosophy, state financial update on how state aid is looking at this point. Our vote tallies from last year, our tax rate history, and a few different expense areas that we know something about right now. Again, the budget philosophy is relatively the same. Plan to protect our instructional programs against state aid and tax levy fluctuations. The thing I've added to the concerns is the Rockefeller Institute state aid study, because that's an unknown thing out there that we don't know how it's going to impact us, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple slides. This again, the important slide that we look at that shows that almost 80% of our revenue comes from two places: foundation aid and tax levy, and that those have been tightly controlled through the legislative process at the state level and through that tax levy calculation that we have to contend with. But it really limits our ability to have revenues come into the district, and we kind of have to work with what's being given to us. We can't go out and make more widgets and things like that to make more money. We can only have so much money coming into the district, and that's set, 80% of it is really set pretty strictly at the state level.
And John, for the foundation aid, what percentage of the 78 is foundation aid?
Of this, it's probably a quarter of that, 25% of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a big slide that we've talked about. I really like the way John has incorporated with the, inflationary rate in there, the CPI, because if year after year you're under it and your averages are under it, how do you keep up with paying for just materials? Forget salaries. How do you pay for materials, supplies, heat, electrical,
gas, diesel,
and the state has done two things to us. Once, it put in a harder way to raise revenue, because we could raise revenue by going out for a 60% of majority vote, and you could put any number you want in the tax levy there, but if they're not keeping up with inflation, and yes, our enrollment has gone down over the last 10 years. We're stabilizing now, so it's really not decreasing the way it did previously in the history, but that does not change the size of the buildings for heat. It does not change the square footage for cleaning the floors. It does not change the length of the routes we're doing. We have less buses, which is why transportation has been able to stay low in some areas, but we have been right-sizing along. We've right-sized our staff, but there are some things you can't change. The lawns are the same size for mowing and staffing. So, and we've taken care of the staff, so the fact we're not keeping up with it is really impactful to providing instruction.
Thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. So that covers that one.
Sorry, John, but it just frustrates me.
It's good. Last year at this time, the governor put out her executive budget proposal, and just a reminder, we talked about this in September as well. At that time, she was proposing removing the hold harmless clause, which would have impacted our district by reducing our foundation aid by $600,000. And she was going to do that for 2 consecutive years, minus 600,000, minus 600,000, to kind of bring us into where they thought we should be. Luckily, throughout the legislative process in April, when the budget was finally resolved, that was removed, and we got a no change in our foundation aid, which is better than negative, but it still wasn't any kind of growth. And we were afraid in September, we were saying, well, she could propose this again, and we're concerned about that. The good news is there's a deputy press secretary for the governor stated a few weeks ago, she said, as we craft the upcoming executive budget, the governor believes we should avoid proposals that would negatively impact school budgets, such as eliminating the safe harmless provision in the foundation aid formula. So that's a bit of good news that she's not going to open with that, reducing our foundation aid. So maybe we'll be at 0, and then through the negotiation process, we really hope we can get to a 2, 3, 4% increase on foundation aid. That would really put us in a comfortable place. But I wouldn't expect that in the executive budget proposal. There's probably going to be a 0. I would.
And if
likely.
John backs up one, and this is where I kind of read into some of the things people say. So what he has yellow is the foundation aid. Look at all the other numbers up there. She did not say she won't touch those. Mm-hmm. So if you look at BOCES, 1.4 million, 1.3 million, she could say, I'm going to change BOCES aid. And she could change that by $600,000 for us. Because she wants to do the aid ratio different for BOCES or something like that. So she can get to the same point and still say, I'm not touching the foundation formula.
Yep.
I laugh because there's a previous board member sitting in the audience, and as he used to say, they took away the gap, or they stopped pulling back money with the gap, but they never removed the language for it. So is this where she goes, yep, I fully funded it, but on another line I subtracted money for some other reason?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give her ideas, but these are concerns until we see her budget, which would come out this year. We're cautiously optimistic.
Correct. And then the Rockefeller Institute, in that process of creating a budget for New York State in April last year, one of the things they wanted to include in there was $1 million, I believe, towards a study of how foundation aid and how it's done, and coming up with some ideas for how maybe to make changes in the future. So this Rockefeller Institute study was done. It was delivered in December like they said it was going to be. There's a lot of NISBA articles, I think, that talk about it and different ideas they have in those proposals. The concern is I don't know how those things will impact our district. The foundation aid formula is extremely involved. There's many factors that play into it. Adjusting one or two of those, I don't know what that means to us until we see the numbers. It could be good news, it could be bad news. So changes it could be good again, but I'm always cautious about what those things will impact us versus our neighbors and different districts across New York State.
Is that going to impact next year or the following year?
They
don't know that.
don't know. I mean, they could come in April and say we're implementing a couple of these things. I don't know if they have the time to do that because it is such a big item to try and fix.
I'm still reading the 300-page document myself.
Yeah.
You've been sleeping really well lately, haven't you?
I don't know if it's going to be that.
We'll see next week when the governor talks if she's trying to implement any of those
Yeah.
changes. But we don't think there's time to do that, but we'll see.
Yeah, the Rockefeller report are recommendations, and they, in part of it they said that, and they said really now it's up to legislative governor to decide how and what they would use in there. So there are things in there that school boards, council of superintendents said, these are things you should look at to update the formula. But if you update this one, but don't change this one, it'll have an effect, positive and negative for schools. And, if you update both, that's a different positive and negative. And if you pick and choose, what's going to happen, and nothing against the report, because I think there's a lot of good things in there they made suggestions of, but they didn't give the answers. They just said, here are the problems that need to be fixed, and you should update things, use more current, here's something you should look at and consider in making a good formula. But they didn't write a formula.
Right.
They didn't write a process for doing it. They just said, here are things to look at when you do one.
And that's why we think it can't probably be implemented very quickly, because they really just gave ideas. They didn't really tell you how to do it. So I don't think there's a time in 3 months to really pull all that together the way they would like to.
And that's where I'm afraid people would cherry pick. I live in this area.
Of
this
course,
part would benefit me.
Yep.
And put it in.
Yeah. So the executive budget proposal is next week, January 14th, I believe, at 1 o'clock, I think, in the afternoon.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we'll be waiting to see how things unfold at that, and and usually shortly after that, or a day later, they come out with some executive budget proposal state aid forms and output reports that we can see, and then we can start to see actual numbers in front of us at that point.
And sometimes, during her speech or previous governors, they kind of trickle out information and they say, we think it's important to fund education appropriately, and then kind of go on to the next topic. So then you have to wait till a larger report comes out, and then how does that look and run? So please don't think on January 14th we'll have the answers. We may. It all depends on how they design the rollout of the information in there.
Yeah, I think it's been the last couple of years, it's been surprisingly little talked about it. It just kind of touches on education very quickly, but there's not much there.
And then, of course, they always say education increased by this large percentage, and then when you break it down, well, this went to colleges, this went to this area, this went to this area, this went to this special thing, this went to this project, and then when you really look at what changed for public K-12 schools, it's a very low percentage.
Look at the vote results from last year. We see the Proposition 1, the general budget vote, almost 71% approval. And on transportation proposition, about 72% approval. And when we compare that to the past, we're right in where we've been. We haven't dipped below about 68%, and we haven't been above 80% approval. So we're kind of very steady, which is good, very consistent, it seems, on the vote approval with the budgets we've been proposing the last number of years. Tax rate, again, reminder, there's three things affect the tax rate. One we control. We set the tax levy. That's all we do. Then the assessments are done by local assessor's office, and then equalization rates are set by the state. And those things are really what drives where the increases are going for tax rates. It's those, especially the equalization rates. If there's a big change on that, it can shift where the tax levy lands in a particular year. So that's how that's dispersed. If we look at our equalized tax rate, that's putting everything at full value, and where our tax rate's been over the last 8 years or so, you can see that it's come down quite a bit in the last number of years. And that's really just, it doesn't mean your tax bill went down. It means our rate's gone down relative to property values, because there's a lot more value. Property values have gone up, so there's a lot more value to spread our tax levy across. It makes the rate look like it's coming down.
So, John?
Yeah.
Just to understand this chart or table. So basically what we're saying that per $1,000, so if the house is $250,000 that the person lives in, right? You'll divide that by 1,000, which is 250?
Yeah.
Okay. And then would you multiply that 250 by the 10 for last year by the 1072?
Yes.
So that gives them
On full market value, yes.
is that how the tax is determined?
No, but taxes, for everybody's tax bill, your town has an equalized rate that, based on your assessment level that you are at.
But for the school tax?
Yeah.
So then how would you like convert that into a dollar amount for?
I would have to take each town individually, and if you want to see what each town, the tax rate in that town, I could show those individually.
Would the 1072 be an average? Would that be fair or not? Because there's
no.
different.
How I would say to someone in the public, if you want to use equalized tax rate, tell me what you would sell your house for, divide it by 1,000 and times it by this number, that's where your taxes should be.
Pretty close, probably.
Right, that's what I was
Yeah.
Should be pretty
Whereas when we do taxes and you get your tax bill, we have to take this 10, and if your house is equalized at 10%, we have to increase that 10 by 90%, or 900%, whichever it is mathematically, I'm sorry. And that is what it would be times what you're assessed for. So your house might be assessed for $1,000, but it's worth $100,000. So therefore, we have to take this 10, make it a bigger number, so it'd be like what you sell it for.
to get the right.
To get the right number.
We distribute, we put
Yeah.
everybody on full value to distribute the taxes. And we do that by reversing the equalization rate and putting everybody at full market, real value.
Yep. And then if your house is worth more and your equalization rate doesn't change, you make out. If your house is worth more and they change, not your equalization, your assessed rate, and if your house is worth more and they raise your assessed rate, then that's, what technically your piece of the pie that you should be paying.
And what we've seen every year, it seems out of our 6 towns, one typically gets a larger increase than the other 5 in a given year, but it travels around. So then next year you get no increase almost, almost no change in their own tax rate, but a different town gets a little different because the equalization rates are changing. So it's shifting that disbursement of the tax levy across the 6 towns in a little different way every year. So some people call me and say, oh, my tax bill went up 4.5%. Yes, but then I go back and I go, well, last year you had a 1% increase on your rate, and before that you had a 1.5%. So it will average out over the number of years, but it does move around a little bit.
So if you really want to think about it, you look at our numbers over there for projected, and they're all about the same. All around the high 2s, we'll say kind of averages. So therefore, over your years living at your house, it's always going to change about the same. There'll be some years a little less, some years a little more, but over a 5-year span, it'll always be about the same each year.
If every house, every house was 100% correct value, a 3.25 increase in levy would be a 3.25 increase on your tax rate, if everything was completely even, but it's not.
So personally, I would say, no matter what's up here, yes, your taxes will go up. Odds are they'll be probably close to what it was last year.
So when we talk about the tax cap calculation, I can estimate it's probably going to be in the 2.7 to 3.6, 3.5 range. Only thing we know right now is the tax base growth factor is 1.006. That just means that's the increase in property and tax base growth in the last year. So they give us a little factor on that we're allowed to increase the levy by. Last year it was a little bit higher, 1.0095. But we also need some additional information like the allowable growth factor, CPI. We don't know what that CPI number is. I assume it's going to be over 2, and if it's over 2, it becomes 2. But we're still waiting for that. And then we have debt service payments. We just did a bus bond last week, and we have some pilot payments that aren't finalized and ready to calculated yet. So there's some other pieces to the puzzle, but hopefully in February we should have that rate, our allowable tax levy growth set. And you can see the history of where that's been over the last couple of years. And really why it's been creeping up a little bit is really driven by the growth factor has been pretty good in our favor to kind of push that a little higher. And CPI has been pegged right at 2%, or it's actually 4 or 8% in the last couple of years, but it's the 2% max. So that's why it's a little bit higher than the previous 3 years. Just a couple of expense areas we look at this time of year. Teacher retirement system did say that they estimate their rate to be between 9.5% and 10% next year. We're at 10.11%, so that's good news. That means it's going to be relatively flat next year. We don't have to really put a lot of money into that expense area, and we're still waiting for the employee retirement system to kind of tell us where they expect to be next year.
Now, remember when John says flat, it's not flat. The rate is flat, but the salaries of the teachers would increase because everyone's moving up a step, so it would be 10-ish% of a bigger number. So don't think, oh, that means 0 increase in that line. It just means it's not the salary increase plus a TRS increase, so it's a double hit.
That means for every dollar we pay a person in the teacher retirement system, we paid 10 cents to the New York State for the retirement system for that program. And then health insurance, we're doing good this year on budget. We're under. We think it's helpful that we did that change on our pharmaceutical program. We're seeing good results from that. We expect our increase to be pretty low on health insurance because of these things we've been doing. So probably 2%, 2 or 3% probably increase we only need to do on that, which is great compared to open market, which is 6, 8, 10%. We're going to do another proposition for vehicle replacement.
Just to give you kudos too, I want people to hear in the public, when we went to the self-funding and we worked that out with the teachers and the support staff, the administrators, it was to do better than the market. And you're doing a great job, our employees are doing a great job, managing their health to keep these rates down for the taxpayers. I mean, if we are still to be out on the open market, our percentage rates, I believe, would be much higher than what we are here. So I think a big kudos goes here because health insurance is a huge number in the budget, and by dropping it a couple percents is a tremendous savings. So thank you, John.
Thank you. And being able to shop these parts of this program out and get the best prices and get better service, hopefully for our employees as well. Dave Sullen's been helping with that as well to kind of make these changes. We made a substantial change to the pharmaceutical side of our health insurance. We went to a different provider. I really think in the big picture it went very well. We had a few different things, but everything was solved pretty quickly when we had any kind of issues, and it's going to be a net savings for the district. And we thank the teachers and the teacher unions and CSEA who really help support that too and help make those changes happen. So in May, we're also going to propose a vehicle replacement, which is going to be very similar to the one we did last year, which will be 2 smaller bus replacements and 3 full-size buses. These we plan to be diesel or gas, diesel on the full-size, gas on the smaller ones, unless there is some kind of grant funding of some sort that would make electric cheaper than these options. We have not been able to secure grant funding to make this electric cheaper. And if that doesn't come through, then we will just proceed with the gas and diesel options for those vehicles. So next steps we have to do, again, finalize the tax cap calculation. We are meeting with departments currently and principals to kind of talk about what they're looking for next year, where they plan to be, things they need. Review the current plan for use of reserves and unallocated fund balance. Retirements are starting to come in at the district level, so we got to evaluate those and the changes that will mean to the budget. Monitor and adjust state aid projections. Obviously next week, that big Tuesday when the state puts out their foundation aid formula and output report. And then we review the BOCES contract that we have for next year. We go through every line. Mary Jo helps with that as well. Technology. We go through every line of that BOCES budget to see if are we still using these things. They give us the numbers on the data on how many people are using the service, how many are doing this, and we decide if we're going to keep that for next year, we're going to change it for next year. So that's, again, in the coming months, we'll be doing that.
And just so the board knows, at multiple BOCES meetings now with superintendents, I'm on a committee, and I've told BOCES if the governor comes back and we have 0%, and I always appreciate them trying to we vote on part of their budget to approve it. I said, so I appreciate that. I said, but it might be hard for our board to support a budget if you're having 3-4% increase, because if we're at 0 and we have to hold that there, I need something from BOCES too to be better. So where are you going to trim? Where are you going to hold back? And I know and that's nothing against them. They really try every year. They're aware of the plight of the schools, and so they make a conscious effort. But I've been pressuring them to do the best they can with their budget. But again, I don't want to impact, you'll hear later about CTE. I don't want to impact that. Where can you make other modifications that won't impact students?
So we always put the contacts in case you want to give the governor a call. You got the number here. We got our representatives in our area, Senator Galvin, Assemblyman DiPietro. And there's a calendar. Though there's nothing scheduled on this schedule for a budget work session for February, I will have a presentation in February to kind of talk about that state aid package, where it is. Maybe have the update on some other things, like maybe some enrollment numbers, and some different things, but I'll have some information at the February meeting as well.
Like we'll talk about grants that are running out and how that'll impact different areas. Revenues, I think you were going to talk about.
All more information then,
And there was one other thing I can't remember now.
The tax cap calculation may be finalized by then. Any questions?
Yeah, I just have one. For the
Okay.
Electric buses, are we applying for grants and we're just not
Yep.
getting them?
Yes. There were 2 that were available for the last cycle. There was, I think, NYSERDA, state level, and then there was EPA that did a clean bus program grant. We are not a priority district in their eyes for the EPA one, so just getting the one was not going to get enough money to make it make sense, so we weren't able to do that. We will apply again and try again, but we have not been identified as a priority district.
So we did win some money,
Yeah.
but it wasn't
Not
enough.
nearly enough.
The bus was still more expensive than going with the diesel or gas.
Yep. Any other questions? Thank you.
We have a 5-minute break then until the board meeting starts. Yeah, put us on pause, just,
Welcome to the Iroquois Central School District Board of Education meeting. There are 2 recognition of guest periods, one for agenda-related items and one for other topics. Please refrain from personal-related comments and address those to the appropriate administrator. To speak, fill out the proper form and submit it to the district clerk. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, with each speaker allowed up to 3 minutes. This meeting is held in public rather than a public meeting. And while we won't engage in dialogue tonight, we are listening. The meeting is live streamed and the recording will be posted online. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Wales primary student. Princeton has two sisters.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, I was just thinking one day someone will say, I don't want a picture with you, Mr. Schofield. Let's have the high school kids and middle school kids take the picture. No, I'm teasing.
They definitely want a picture.
I'll say something.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We are moving on to board discussion and news we're sharing. The first topic is the capital project that we talked about at the last board meeting. And again, just like the last board meeting, the purpose of this is to have a discussion. It's not like on the consensus agenda. We're not like voting anything finally in or out. So I think I'm gonna let Doug lead off with an idea that he.
Yeah, so we would, in hearing the board last time, I heard 2 points. One, worry about taxes, another one, and I think it was Jane and Heather, that about the critical or double critical, making sure everything was done. So we went back and we sat down, and there's different ideas, because like, if we were to do everything, and, you know, with a number total of about $34 million, you could use one idea John and I came up with, so John will chime in here at different times, is use future fund balance. So instead of putting it into reserve, you go right into it, and that means the project would be done as the money comes available. With that, you have cost escalation, and then how many years would that go out to have that? But again, you're going out with zero tax impact. Another one that we were working on the other day, not to give you too many, is he got the final number of what we could do with no tax impact with the funds we have now that would be available right away. With that, we could do the high school roof, the Marilla primary roof, the HVAC system at both Wales primary and Marilla primary, which were some of our biggest concerns. We could do the high school electrical as an alt bid, that if the funds came in and we were able to save money through the project, we could still hit that. What that would leave outside of it would be the high school HVAC, which we've already updated all the boilers in it, but we have not updated the units in the room. So the core of it would still be working. Talked to Dave about it, and he says, Dave Carlin, head of Superintendent Buildings and Grounds, and he says, yeah, that makes sense. If you could do the roof, and the heating system at Wales and Marilla, those are the big things that need to be addressed, and we could do that with a project of the $23 million. It would allow that if funds came in good and different things, that we could also hit the high school electronics, the bus bar it's called in there, which would be good. And why I have a concern is I always look at what's going on around us. And if you go out with two propositions, whether it has a tax impact or no tax impact, how would it be? How would it look at? And recently, there's 2 school districts in Western New York that did go out with multiple propositions. Both of them did have the second propositions go down. And they were fix-it things. They were not opulent things, and so that worries me too, that worries me about it. John, you want to jump in here, or you want me to keep going? All right, so the other aspect too we worry about it is future budgets, protecting the instructional budget. And when you go out for a vote, if there's two propositions and one of them has a tax impact, if they pass, when do people feel that the tax is hit? It's not when they pass it, it's 2 years later, John?
The increase that, when you vote on the project and you say, I accept, as a voter, I accept the tax increase of this project, how that gets implemented is through the tax cap calculation, which I do during the budget process, like I was talking about earlier today. So that will follow, it's almost going to be 2 years after the vote, because the project has to be approved by New York State. It takes 6 months to a year. All the project documents have to be done, completed, the design work, and then you have to do bids. Well, then to get the project going, it usually takes 1.5 years or so before actual work starts happening. Then you do the borrowing for that project. It's usually about 1.5 years down the road. So the actual impact to the tax levy will lag pretty far behind when the vote happens. It'll be almost 2 years, probably, most likely. So that's the problem is, people may not connect those two, and they're going to be voting on the budget at that time, and they're going to see a levy increase that's not a normal levy increase possibly. It could be 1% or 2 percentage points higher than normal.
Which would make what would be the number then for the levy?
For the levy.
Oh, yeah,
The levy,
like if you looked at what we had up before last year was 3%.
Let's say we average around 2.5 over the last 5 years, 2.5. This could increase it to 3.5 to 4, possibly. And that would happen 2 years after the vote, so I don't think, it would be hard to connect those two in somebody's mind, I think, to say, why did it go up this much this year? And then you possibly threaten the budget vote that year, because that's part of the budget process. They're gonna vote on that tax levy increase, really. So that's just a concern that we were talking about.
So, and that's what...
And one more thing, it only happens that 1 year, because once you do that 1 year increase, so that becomes your base year, so the next year will be a normal increase. But you will take that one hit, because it was voter-approved increase in the levy, that's what it will hit.
And so, last month when we met and talked about it, the board was clear that they wanted to get everything done and do the two propositions and, leaning towards the tax impact. But I would feel I wasn't doing my job if I didn't come back and say, here are concerns that we have with it, with what's going on in the educational world for other votes. I mean, granted, every district is unique in what it says and what it values. The history of Iroquois with multiple propositions, and the fact that, I really heard, and it was really nice how you said, is it critical or double critical? That really struck with me. How can we get them both done? And it seems we would be able to hit the heating systems and the roofs, because the question was, would you rather be warm or dry? We should be able to do both of it with that 23 million. Now, granted, we're not updating the heating system, or not the heating system, the univents in the rooms, but that is just something we'd have to take, and that's where it has to be balanced between the two. I mean, total project of around $35 million would have a tax levy. You heard the percentage changes in there. Dollar amount for a $200,000 house, I think it's only like $14 every single year. But that's immaterial where do people, and I know different people said any tax increase is too much if we can address it a different way. So the one way we came up with is, well, we could do all of it for 35 and then just say we're not going to do it until we get there. That's a huge trust thing to the public, because you don't have the money. How do we know you're not going to do it some other way? So John kept working on it and worked with Dave and our financial consultants, got a number of 23 million where we could get the critical, super critical, or I forget your exact word, sorry. But they did resonate with me, and have a plan to get that addressed while going out how we've done it before with no tax impact, and then hit the other ones in a future project.
And just, like, my concern always remains the same. I think the two propositions still could cause confusion, like I said last time. And when we look at a tax increase, we're looking at it on the board and directly to Iroquois. What we gotta understand is, I think, just because Doug said the number $14, to the person, living in the community with the house, it's $14 for school, it's the water bill goes up, the electric bill goes up, the gas bill goes up, they're trying to send kids to college, they're trying to buy groceries. So it's never just $14 or just $10 or just $12. It sounds weird, but it can put a lot of pressure and stress on people's lives. There's one individual, one resident one parent who, caught up with me and said, you have to understand that I'm at the point that any increase could cause me to move out of the district. I just think when we're talking about raising taxes on our, community members, our neighbors, our friends, that the trust comes in that we're going to do what we have to do at the most reasonable price, and we've never done a tax impact on a capital project, because then it becomes the budget goes up, the capital project goes up, and their water bills go up, their electric bills go up, and it does cause a lot of stress. And if we can take care of the roofs and the heat primarily with no tax impact, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then we also have to understand, as stewards of the public money, when we say that we're going to do a controller or something, and it becomes more energy efficient, that energy efficiency that saves money never comes back to the taxpayer. It goes into the general budget, and we will spend it some other way. It's just the way it works. So I just want to be super conscientious of when we're talking about our neighbors and our friends, their wallet, their pocketbook, and what we've always done at Iroquois. And that's just, like I said, where I've been all along, and I like that way, even going out, like Doug said, the other way. I think that still people vote on emotion and how they feel, and it's like, well, what's really going to happen? How are they really going to do this? I just think that leaves a lot of uncertainty. Plus the fact that, if you're out 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, there are other things that are going to come up that we're going to have to take care of as well, that we don't know about. It's like, and this is the last thing I'll say, it's like if you have a house and your hot water tank goes, you fix that. Your furnace goes, you fix that. If the roof's going to be good for another 8 years, you don't necessarily do it right now unless you have that free money. And in 6 years, if it starts leaking, you address it. We just have to be super conscientious of the community's money and their pocketbook.
Can you just repeat, Doug, what you said that is super critical to roofs?
Yeah, the big things that we have always are roofs. A roof's leaking, water gets inside, it causes more damage. And that's why we prioritize the roofs at the high school in Wales. We did have a new roof already on the II, on the middle school, on Marilla. I wish Dave was here because it's not that, I can't remember Alma. So it's Wales and the high school that we need to work on. And then the other part would be the heating ventilation system at Wales and Marilla, because Alma's already hydronics. The middle school II and high school are hydronics. The middle school II and Marilla have the unit vents in the rooms done. The high school doesn't have the unit vents in the rooms done, but that's not as critical as the backbone structure delivering the heat. And, if you go out to, in one room, I'll say it, I want to say Marilla, the crayons are melting, and in the other room, they're wearing coats. And it's probably the same way at Wales. So that's why, though you have two elementaries, how do you decide which one is getting, the heating system? And we said, well, we'd go to Wales first because it has the harder water, and therefore that system would tend to break sooner. But really, they both need to be addressed, period. And that's where, they're critical and really critical. And I hate hearing critical and really critical, because the word critical is not good when you're trying to take care of the environment for health where students are educating.
And then the big difference is that now, John and compliments that you're within a single project with no tax impact. Now we can do the roofs and both heating units, which was different than last time.
Yeah.
So we were able to get more without the tax impact, which I just think makes a lot of sense.
And so just so you're aware, why did it change so much? It's because if you look at the information you got last time, we said based on the cost of the projects, we were estimating right around 21 million. We couldn't get all the heating system in, so we got up to 17 million we were spending. That left about 4 million sitting there. By running the numbers for the reserves and looking at it and working with them, we got up to 23 million. So that extra million or two, plus what we weren't using the first time, gave us enough to get in Marilla. And that's why it changed by so much, because there were some we're not using, and then there was that little bit that we got running the numbers and coming up with really trying to finalize that. Once we heard what the board prioritized, it was agreeing to prioritize. So really trying to hit what I heard from the board of trying to address the critical, super critical, and worrying about the taxes and trying to put that together. Had an original idea, but then John made it better of getting to that 23 million. So thank you, John.
And one thing I was just thinking now about, really, when I think about it is, you're really, when you're trying to do a tax impact project that has a tax impact, there's really technically two votes that you have to get by. You got to give the project a vote by. And then 2 years from then, you're going to have this levy increase, and people have to approve that budget that has that levy increase that's a little higher than normal. So you've got to bank on both those happening, really. So that's my concern.
And speaking about like temperature, and now I'm gonna go to the other extreme.
Yeah.
What is that, local, item that you just signed about temperature in the
The
room?
temperature.
Is that like coming up in the next year, and is there gonna be any aid for that?
We'll have a guest speaker talk about state aid and funding mandates in a few moments.
So is
But-
that for next year?
Yeah, it would be, and already we look at that, and what that is, yeah, so what it is now they've put into place with Hochul, they signed a bill, and I'll have to actually see when it starts to warm up, if it hits this spring, but if a room temperature gets to 83 degrees, so greater than 82, we have to do mitigation strategies in the room. What does that mean? Open doors, open windows, shut shades, have drink breaks, things like that. When it gets above 87 to 88, then, which I find interesting with people, just on a side note, because I have issues, above 87, they go 88. Well, isn't 87.1 above 87? But they say 88, so when it gets to 88, that you can't utilize, you can't be in school. And you have to take appropriate measures, but you also have to be aware of what's going on. So there's some other caveats in there we have to understand. So, if it's the Regents exam, does that mean they have to stay in and take the Regents exam? But if it's a regular school day, they can go home. And you can't have a worker, and you cannot have students in that environment. So that means the bus garage, if it gets to 88 degrees, I can't have the mechanics working. Even if the building was at 80 degrees, I can't have mechanics. Well, if I can't have mechanics, I can't run my buses. And so that comes into place. Now, the good news is, and maybe people think it's not good news, there's a very specific spot you measure it. It's in the shade, center of the room, 3 feet above the ground. Okay, so that's where you have to go with your thermometer and have an appropriate thermometer. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to buy thermometers to come in the room and measure it for us and tell us. But we'll have a standardized thermometer we use for it, and that's what we'll count on. And it'll be appropriately calibrated. We can work with the science department for people who don't trust me. And with that, we did do that already this past spring when I knew they were talking about this. And with that heat wave we had in June, we never did hit a room that crossed that threshold, and it was quite warm. Doesn't mean we won't have it happen in the future. Where I worry about it is if it's in June and we've used all our snow days, how can you have a day off? Then you lose aid. You're below the 180 days. This has not been talked about by the state. What happens if it's during a Regents Day? Well, then you probably would have to have the kids stay in because there's that clause in there about it. Other school districts worry about students going home. So if you're here at school, which might be that temperature, but we have different things that might help to mitigate it, because like we've air conditioned all our cafeterias except for II, but we're working on that one right now. We could take them to rooms where it is cooler. But there are children that have homes with no air conditioning. So if you're sending them home, and then there are other students that if you send them home too early and they don't have lunch, they might not have meals at home. So now you're sending a child home to a house with no air conditioning and no food. So is that really the best strategy? We will have to follow the laws, we will follow the laws, but if one room hits 88, that doesn't mean we're closing down the school, it just means we couldn't use that area. They would have to go like to the cafeteria or to the library or some other spot. If the multiple rooms hit it and we couldn't mitigate it, then we would have to close school.
So it takes effect September 1st, 2025, so we have
Okay,
time,
we
I
have-
guess.
And we're going to measure it this
So we
spring.
don't have to do anything next year infrastructure-wise to
Right.
mitigate any.
It'll be hard to put air conditioning or anything. I did talk to different people. When we do the heating systems, we do put spots in there for chillers or different things. So we're billing for that for the future. If you wanted that built into this budget, or this project, it would be hot. And the other part where I say we have time is because of measuring the temperatures that we have right now.
All right, thank you.
Sorry for the long explanation, I just wanted to be detailed.
And just to be clear, it's that room that, if one room is 88 plus, it's that one room that gets shut down, not the entire school.
Right.
And typically in buildings, you see it's the second floor, it's the rooms that get sun in the morning coming through their windows.
Yeah.
And each building has one maybe set of rooms that have that, but it's usually not an entire school. 88's a pretty high number. I don't think I've ever seen that in a room before myself.
Just before we move on, are there any other questions on the cap? Okay.
Well, I guess for clarification from the board now, do you want us to keep pursuing two propositions, one with a tax impact, or do you want us to focus on the 23 million, getting the roof, and HVAC done? Granted, if we get more data, it's not the final decision, I just want to know where we should focus our energy. And we do have two board members opposite here, I don't want to speak from them, but Jane last time publicly said that, she kind of liked the possibility of going out with a tax impact. I know the other person that's not here has stated they do not want to see a tax impact, so they're kind of balancing each other out, so we look at you guys. Not to say that they wouldn't change where they are, so I'm not speaking for you guys if you're watching, I'm just saying what you've said in the history.
Yeah, it's for my opinion, I would definitely want to go with the no tax impact.
Well, Jane, although she's not here to speak, she does say that with the new info, she's good with just one proposition. Thank you, Jane. It's a discussion, not a vote, so it's okay, she gave that to me.
Is there something else you would be looking to accomplish to add with the two, or why would we go with two? It's on.
Why would we go with two? Because you could hit the high school units that are older, but really what we need to accomplish is what we can get in here. I mean, there's always more. There's always it's a house. There's always something more you can do. This is what needs to be done right now with the funds we have. Everything else would be a tax impact, but that also can be put off as we save more money. With Jim's analogy, the roof isn't, well, I don't like roof because our roofs are leaking, but there are aspects that aren't completely broken, so we can keep working with those while we fix the things that do need to be addressed right away.
I was just wondering why you would go with two versus one, that's all.
Just to try to get more done. Some schools go with huge amounts with large tax impacts. We try to be very conscious of the taxpayers here. So I'm hearing you're kind of for the one? Okay.
And then Heather?
I mean, considering they're all critical.
We got the critical and critical.
Yeah, so you just change the things that were in Proposition 1 to.
Yeah, and with the numbers we had, we refined the tax impact to get the most exact number with updated information. So we should be able to hit that 23 million where we were talking 21 before.
Heather, does that make sense to you?
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay. So-
Okay, we'll keep plugging along with that. We will not forget the other stuff. We will not forget the other stuff that's in the building condition survey. But we'll we'll keep working this down and refine it more.
And just the building condition survey and all that stuff, that's always an ongoing process.
It's always an ongoing process.
That's what we
We will never forget it and never put it away.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next, which is preparing students for career CTE. The high school principal, Christian Nestri, is here, and he's got an exciting, oh my God, what am I looking for on,
Report on
Report
career
on-
and technical education.
preparing students for successful careers.
Okay.
And he said he's gonna do it in 45 seconds, compared to John's half hour.
45 seconds. Oh,
Well, I looked at his
goodness.
presentation, and we have a 25-minute video in there of me.
The videos of me. I should have a presentation coming up, so. I'll try to be 45 seconds. How does that sound, Jim? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we are, again, thank you for allowing me to do this presentation today. We're in the high school, we're very proud of being able to provide students with many opportunities to be successful and having many pathways for our students. And last month, Ms. Langhardt got the opportunity to speak to you in regards to financial literacy and career and tech that we are able to provide our students within the school. And today I'd like to highlight what off-site opportunities students have. That's why today our students today came and were able to give some insight to their experience that they had. And that's why we wanted them to talk a little bit about that, but I want to elaborate about that because what I really want to talk about today is to ask for the board to continue to support students and their ability to be able to go off-site and as juniors and seniors and to be able to continue these experiences because we're seeing an increase of the number of students who want to continue those experiences and how important it is for them to be able to continue to do that at our regional centers. And I want to talk about that and why that's important and why we want to continue to give students those particular opportunities. I just wanted to pull this map up for you and just to talk about why where we're located gives us a specific advantage. But first, let me just talk about why regional centers are important for us and what the advantages are of regional centers. First of all, students really have an advantage going to a regional center because they offer our kids to have really highly specialized programs that are taught by instructors who give them the ability to have a highly specialized program and an instructor who has a really specific certification that we oftentimes at our school don't have the ability to be able to find an instructor that has that highly specialized certification. For example, our students who go to the Ormsby Center in East Aurora, we have students that take diesel tech there. And for us to be able to find an instructor here at Iroquois who takes diesel tech, and we first of all only have like maybe a handful of students who might want to take that here. That's in a very enormous building over there at Ormsby. If you go over there and you were to visit that center over there, it's in this huge area where they have cars and they have this huge engines. Okay, and they have one instructor there who teaches that, who's got this really specific certification, and we send 3 or 4 students into that program. That's something that would be, financially, that would be very difficult for us to support here, and something that would be very, very difficult for us to find a teacher who is certified in that specific area. But when you bring students from multiple school districts into that area, from East Aurora, from Holland, for example, from Springville, many students can come together and they can take that class. That's something that a regional center can support. But here alone at Iroquois, we couldn't support that year after year, and we couldn't sustain that financially, and nor could we find a teacher that could sustain that financially. So that regional center is something that can support that over time because they can draw students from multiple school districts who can support that. Now, our geographic advantage is that because we are centrally located in Western New York, that we can actually send students to 3 different regional centers. Not only can we send students to Ormsby Center, which is located in East Aurora, but we also can send students to 2 Erie 1 centers, which are located at Potter Road, and one that's also located in Cheektowaga and Harkness. So that gives us a tremendous advantage to be able to offer our students a variety of programs. We talked to Ethan was here. Ethan actually attends the Harkness Center where he takes aviation, which is something that Erie 2 at the Ormsby Center does not offer. but it is offered at Erie One over at the Harkness Center. So he's able to take advantage of that program because our board and our school district actually supports our students being, who is able to take a bus over to the Harkness Center because we are regionally located in the center of Western New York, where it's actually enables us to be able to get on a bus and go to Cheektowaga, and actually enables us to be able to have the ability to be able to have a student be transported to that particular location. Also, through Erie One, our students are able to take advantage, like Meredith does, to go to New Visions program, which is also an Erie One BOCES affiliated program, where she can take the health sciences program. So because we are centrally located, we can take advantage of both Erie One and Erie Two centers, and have our students be able to participate in all of those programs. So those are really great that we're able to be centrally located and be able to take advantage of these regional centers. Okay, so what opportunities do they really give our students that we would have a difficulty offering if we just had students come here and not be able to attend these programs? First, our students do get college credit through these programs. Okay, and they also were able to, I know one of our students mentioned the fact that he's able to get an industry certification through these programs that enables like for example, welding. Some of our students get welding certifications through these programs. That's one example. Or certification through like engine repair, through body shop or other through building trades. So they'll actually be certified to be able to go right to work through these programs. Or direct to work career opportunities, which I'm going to show you in a small video at the end. Okay, so I listed every program that right on this particular page that our students will have access to because of our affiliations with our regional centers through Erie 2 and Erie 1. Now, I want you to know that currently not all of our students are enrolled in these programs, but every year our students will have access to each one of these programs through Erie 1 and Erie 2. Now, most of our students, because we are a component district of Erie 2, most of our students do attend the Ormsby Center at Erie 2 in East Aurora, but all of our students do have access to each and every one of these programs that I have listed up here. And there's actually some New Visions programs through Erie 2 that I don't have listed up here that our students do have access to as well through Erie 2. All of our students do have access to these particular programs on a yearly basis as a result of our agreements with Erie 1 and Erie 2 BOCES, and that they can attend these programs. Now, because of our relationships that we have developed over the years with the administrators and the principals at Harkness, at Potter Road, and as well as the Ormsby Center, we're sometimes able to have our students attend programs because some of these programs do fill up quite quickly. So, like for example, their welding and metal fabrication is at both. It's at both Potter Road and it's also at Ormsby. So it's at both places, but sometimes at Ormsby it fills up. So I can make a phone call over to Mr. Vogel over at Potter and say, do you have an opening for one of our students over at Erie 1? So because it fills up at Ormsby, I can sometimes get one of our students over at Erie 1. Now, we also have some students that, for example, I know that Ethan was talking about aviation. Aviation does not exist at Erie 2. So because we have an affiliation with Erie 1 and our students are close to Erie 1, we're able to send students over to the Harkness Center to take aviation over at Erie 1. So because we are able to have that affiliation with Erie 1, like a lot of other schools do not have, our students can take aviation over at Erie 1. So this is how we're able to get our students to have these multiple opportunities, because we're able to utilize both of our BOCES programs. And that's why we have so many of these particular programs that I'm able to list up here, because we have these affiliations with all three of these regional centers. Now, the one thing I wanted to highlight to you on the bottom here is that I have the New Visions and Tech Prep program that I see at the bottom, and I highlighted 3 of them because those are 3 programs that we currently have students enrolled in. And I know Meredith talked a little bit about her health and related careers New Visions program. Those are particular programs that students will go right into a particular work field in and shadow and really look at a particular field of study and actually get right into an actual workplace and work right alongside people in a particular field, so they get an idea of what that particular career is like. And Meredith talked about her experiences in the health related careers, where she goes right into Buffalo General and is able to do that and see what's going on in that particular field and see a different variety of health related careers within that particular field. So I highlighted those 3 because we know those are 3 that we currently have students in right now. So we have 3 students in health related careers currently. We also have 1 student who's now in the Education's Pathway Academy over at Buffalo State College in the elementary school that's located right on the campus there. And we also have a student who's working right now at the Buffalo Zoo in the Zoo Wildlife and Conservation's career over there. And all those students are having really enriching experiences within the New Visions Tech program. And those are all through Erie 1 BOCES as well. So those are really great experiences for our students. Right now, Erie 1 is hosting an open house right now for our students. That's going to be taking place next week that we're promoting among our students through New Visions. Everything that you're seeing up here are programs that are offered to juniors and seniors to our students right now. So that's really a BOCES rule. So only juniors and seniors are able to participate in everything that I'm showing you right here. New Visions is just for seniors. So it's only available for seniors. Okay, so to give you a better idea of what New Visions is like, I'd like to show you this video. Can you play the video?
Sorry, for some reason the attachment didn't go over, but if you were to watch the video, because I did watch it with him and we'll get it to the board. Really what it did is it was what produced what the students came and presented to you today, of where we did have a student in there. What program was he in?
He was in a program he was doing an pre-engineering program.
Pre-engineering program.
And it just described then he went into the field, and it was really something that spurred his interest in regards to going into the field and working alongside, in the field and working alongside in a manufacturing type of setting. So.
But we have a video here. We'll run it back and Paul can switch computers. Thank you, Nora.
Okay. So I can give you, currently, students that participate in these programs, currently we have, as far as our juniors go, students that participate in these programs. Oh, that was me, wasn't it? How did I do that? Oh.
Keep going.
Okay, so.
I'll listen to you twice.
Yeah, there you go. Currently, we have in our 12th grade, 48 out of 158 students attend career and technical ed programs. So that's 30% of our senior class. Junior class, 68 out of 170 students attend career and tech ed. That's 40%. And we had. As far as our current sophomores, we had a visit over to Ormsby and at Ormsby they also promoted New Visions through Erie 1. So 72 out of 144, that's 50% of our students did the Ormsby visit, okay, in our current 10th grade. So that's quite a large amount of our students are interested in these programs.
We do expose a lot of students, and
yes,
quite a few take it.
All throughout BOCES in New York State. Knowing engineering is a major facet in fabrication engineers, ceramic engineers, even some electrical engineers, just getting their insight on what they do day to day, what college they went to, what degree they have. I mean, it was huge just to get that knowledge and that information.
New Vision is one of those classes that, like, it's not like math or science where, like, you know, even if you're not going for, like, a science, like, major or something, then you're going to use it. It is the truth of, like, you know, how it works. Because, like, if I went to a different machine shop now after a month and a half of working here, I don't think I'd be able to handle myself because everything is different people, different relationships, different machines even. Like, you know, if you come here, like, I would plan to stay here.
And we show literally every single department they have there, so you get a taste of everything. You can see what you do like, what you don't like, and that helped me narrow down like what I kind of want to be doing with the rest of my life, and like what I want to go for a degree in. So that really helped progress my future.
The exciting thing about a career in the machine trades is you're constantly learning. A lot of jobs you can learn in 6 months or a year. This job, you can know a lot in 6 months or a year, but you're constantly learning. And I still learn. There's new materials, there's new machines, there's new cutting tools. It's just such a vast industry, and you can come in as a machinist, as a programmer, as a supervision, as quality. So there's so many levels of it. It's just exciting career, exciting trade.
I was always, like, unsure what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until, like, right now that I'm in love with machining. Maybe eventually I would like to move to, like, engineering. I'll let myself grow in a company.
If I wasn't in this program, I definitely would be in out-of-state college, probably in a different degree program. This really helped me narrow down like what I wanted and helped me figure out like what kind of schools were around here that I could go to and still be in a tuition reimbursement program.
When we opened this endeavor with PCB, they spoke to the students that were there, is that, again, they have a tuition reimbursement policy that goes on with their staff. Well, they carried it out with our students. And I think for a parent and for a student, again, for sitting there spending thousands of dollars on tuition, let them get some real experience in regards to what's out there, and again, generate an idea of what they really want to go for.
This whole program really helped me find the base of where I should start after high school. And I saw it as once school is done, I'll be debt-free. One, I'll have money in my pocket, and I'll have a full-time job waiting for me, good pay. I know what I'm doing, I know where I'll be at, I know the people around me. I think a lot of people that are interested in engineering or machining or anything in the manufacturing industry, definitely check it out.
The end result of this is that the 3 individuals that participated in that program are all employed at PCB right now and are all going on to college.
I had a couple questions, and thanks for
Sure.
covering the number of students
Yes.
and what years they can be part of these programs. But how do we get parents to kind of know more about what's available?
I'm sorry. Okay, say it again.
Is this on?
How do we get parents more into knowing what's going on? It's great we have the students, but how do parents know about it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The one thing we've been doing is we have, like I said, we had a field trip for all of our students to go over to Harkness. And the best thing that we could possibly do would be to promote these programs and have information nights. And we've done that in the past with these programs prior to having registrations for that. We also Harkness has an open house that we promoted. So students, we do promote the open house. So parents and families can go I'm sorry, not Harkness, but Ormsby does have an open house. So we've also promoted that so that they can go over there, can tour the facility. So that's the best way in which we promoted it.
Any other questions from anyone? Thank you, Chris, very much. And
Okay,
and
any-
congratulations on all the kids that take advantage of this, because
Yep.
it really is a difference. Yeah.
Right, and that's helped because we, like I said, through the years, we've had an increase in number of students. And again, thank you for all the support that you've given these programs, because they've increased over the years, and we've really appreciated all the support you've given. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we're going to move on to the superintendent report by Mr. Douglas Schofield.
All right, so we did have open communication. We did have, parents came and spoke last time. It was about wrestling. So, and actually I want to call this up too. With the wrestling, the athletic director has been really working to take care of it. So one thing that's important to note is the district has been modifying the direction it's been going with girls and wrestling right along as this situation's been evolving. You know, back in June, a parent asked about it, you know, will there be a girls wrestling team? The answer that came from that athletic director is the district is staying with mixed competition, which means no, there's not a individual girls wrestling. It is mixed with the boys. The coaches are aware of that, and they also were aware that the girls needed to do freestyle. Coaches were good with it, and based on the numbers, there was only like 3 or 4 girls of the athletes, and the coaches didn't request anything special or anything they needed different. As it moved on, one coach did state he was going to work on a proposal for a girls' team, but nothing was done till November. Mid-October, we did receive a call from another district, Alexander, about merging. This took myself and the athletic director by surprise, because we didn't know. In fact, it actually even took the athletic director at Alexander by surprise, because he knew nothing about it. After the request, we spoke with the coach about using proper procedures and stuff, and said you need to go through and fill it out, about if there's anything's going to happen. And November 11th, we received an email from a parent about a merger. November 12th, we received an email from the coach requesting a merger. But again, nothing about a girls wrestling team. November 18th is when the season started. There were only about 3 or 4 girls on the team. From there, it grew over the time. And due to the numbers, the district took action and provided a separate practice time for the girls, because there wasn't enough room. They had a coach that went in there with them. At the 12th, December 11th, we received an email with concerns, and this was from parents, about mats, singlets, and the shower conditions. Again, not from the coaches, from parents. Then, we had to look for other solutions. There was a personnel situation that caused us to seek other supports for the girls who wanted to wrestle. So additionally, we addressed the singlet concern. The new ones should arrive this week. The shower conditions were addressed because, in my opinion, they needed showers. I went and viewed it myself with the athletic director, and having the storage in there was not appropriate at all. The and I gotta say, nothing against the phys ed teachers, because no one had been using those showers for years, but then when someone used them, the coaches should address that with the girls, or with the coach, with the phys ed teachers, saying, we need this cleaned out. If it wasn't happened, then they should have gone to the AD and had that rectified.
Because it was phys ed that was using that as
It
storage.
was phys ed that was using that as storage. And I understand how that came about, and it makes sense. Researching the mats, it's been difficult because other districts have exactly the same as Iroquois. There was a situation where the AD said she was at a meeting and looked at the athletic director on the right and said, what do you do for mats? And they're like, what do you mean? Why would we do anything different? And looked at the other one and said, well, we do this. We have these mats. So she's been making good progress on that. So at this time, the same, let's see, well, go ahead.
Just, and on the mats, because I involved this conversation with Doug, and it's not, the mats that the girls actually wrestle on are the same. The freestyle mats are mats they use in practice for throwing.
Correct.
And then the ways explained to me, they're a lot like a gymnastics,
Yeah.
mat.
Yeah, when you're doing freestyle, you practice throws, and by doing it repetitively, it's nice to have these mats. It's not a requirement, but I think I would say it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate. I want to move forward with it being appropriate, because it's like a gymnast who's flipping and landing on their legs all the time. You're going to hurt your knees eventually. So by having a cushion pit for them, it makes it better. By having the mats, so we are moving forward with that, and we'll have those. So please know that. It's just the evolving of the team of the mixed competition. So we have the same, as the start, we have the same commitment to having the girls have the opportunity to train, compete, and attend tournaments. When we started the season, we had that. Last year, we put that in place for them to attend their things. As it grew, the athletic department has made adjustments, gave them different practice times, and as things came to us, unfortunately, the parents brought it to us, but we consistently support the athletes with the team size. Next year, if numbers remain consistent, we're looking to implement a girls' team rather than a mixed competition. We're also looking to, is there a school that would partner for us? Because that would help with it. For years, we've even talked about it with the boys, with a neighboring school. Would it make sense? Would it make sense to keep this a viable program in the best light of it? So we're going to be exploring that. And I want to leave with one thing, because there was an email that was sent to the whole board, to the athletic director. The athletic director talked to the parent, and the response came back today, so I'm sure you have it. I'm just going to read the first sentence. It said, I want to express my appreciation for your consistent support for addressing the concerns surrounding the girls' wrestling program. It's encouraging to see the progress we're making together. Are we all done yet? No, we're still looking at it. We're trying to improve some of the transportation, get some more practices here rather than at Alden, who we're partnering with. There's been some problems with tournaments that they weren't signed up for, so I know people are going the extra mile to get them in those tournaments so they can get as many as possible. We have people at different levels, so we're even trying to take care of that, so the people who have more experience in it can get to the higher level tournaments, while the other ones still get to tournaments that they have they're going to be part of the masses there, rather than be the ones that lose right away, because the more you can wrestle, the more you can practice in tournaments, the better off you are in the long term.
And I think the big understanding that as I learned, as I start to research this or ask questions, was in the very beginning, this all happened in real time, and these changes happened in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And the administration, the athletic department, has been real supportive of trying to institute these changes. It started the season off with one vision, which was a mixed wrestling
Correct.
team for a few girls, and then it grew. And as it grew, the district adjusted. The season didn't start off like you think. There's the boys football team. There's always been a boys football team. There's a set system for it. That didn't happen this way. This was happening in real time, and where I kind of want to thank the administration and the athletic directors. They didn't say, you know what, no, we're going to do this next year. We'll figure it out. We're just going to continue with what we have. They kept on moving and making adjustments to support the girls in this. Like a superintendent said, is it perfect yet? No, but they keep on working to address it as they go and to get there.
And I guess
important.
paralleling what you said there, to really make a strong point of it, is for a lot of sports, if you don't make the tryout period before the season or at the beginning of the season, you don't get on the team. We kept the team open so that we allowed people to keep joining it so it could grow. Because I think it's important for students to have opportunities, and if students are really interested in developing programs, that's a great thing to provide for students.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is Iroquois providing funding for the girls wrestling program?
Yes, it is, because that's where the new singlets have been ordered, paid for by the district. That's where you will see in the board where we're paying for the coach. We are also going to, John's already worked out where we're going to be able to get the pads for next year. Right now, last I talked with the athletic director, making sure that we're able, they have the circle you wrestle in is different sizes for the two sports, to make sure that we have the appropriate circle for the freestyle competition. And in fact, it's interesting because the athletic director means, when I brought it up to her that there's a different size circle, she says no one's ever talked about that at the AD meeting, with all these people talking about the mixed sport and the girls and doing the freestyle, because just this year is the first year everyone agreed for the girls to do freestyle. Before that, they were doing Roman Greco, and no one has talked about it. So she's what is the requirement for it? What will it be for the states? So we're making sure we're preparing the athletes for what they're going to face as they move through competitions up to the state level.
And the reason why I asked that question is because a GoFundMe
Saw that today.
page caught my
Yeah,
eye this afternoon, and it clearly says that
there's no
Iroquois
funding.
is not providing any funding for girls wrestling, which didn't think that was the case, but that's why I asked that
Yeah.
question.
And in fact, the funny we did there, because I mean, this year, before the season, we ordered new uniforms. They came in and said they weren't appropriate. We ordered a second set of new uniforms, so if there was no funding, how did we order two sets of uniforms for it? So
Okay.
we're making sure that happens. And I do want to be clear to the public and all the booster groups out there, thank you to all the boosters. They do help really support programs with different things because we do have a limit of our funding. We try to have it the max. So I did take those postings, pass them along to the athletic director, so she can talk to the student who did it, and what are you trying to fund? So if they're trying to fund warm-up outfits, practice uniforms, things like that, I would say she is, the student is correct. We are not funding practice uniforms for them, but we haven't done that for the boys either. So if there's additional ancillary things, like the football does, like soccer does, girls field hockey does, by all means, she's correct, but let's make sure that there is funding for girls wrestling. We're paying for the buses, we're paying for the tournaments, we're paying for the coach, we're paying for the singlets. We will be purchasing the pads.
And transportation.
And transportation.
Okay, and the big thing is next year will be different because this is evolving in real time. And as far as, like, the section hasn't even established everything that we may or may not need.
Right.
So it is evolving in real time.
It's not sanctioned this year, but it's supposed to be sanctioned next year, or that's what's on slate. And then and that's our thing with the timeline, if you look at it, there is a time period of where you need to merge, if you're going to merge. That's happening in another week or two. It's not a week before the season. It's almost a year ahead of time. And that's why I want the board to know, I was talking with Carrie today, and we're going to be exploring it too, if there is a partnership we could do, because that would put more funding into the program, in wrestling, you need to have people to compete against that should be close to your skill level and close to your weight class. By having a larger team, this affords that. And if you have a heavyweight and someone at 98 pounds, it really doesn't work at all.
And I think the primary mission of athletics at the high school level is to provide as much opportunity for as many students as possible. And I just think that if a merger allows that, that makes sense. And that's what I believe you said you're exploring to figure out if that makes sense.
And it also needs to be a merger, because that's one of the questions they had about the time on the bus to travel. It has to be a school district that when the students leave school here, or the students coming here, have time. You can't show up to a practice an hour late because of a bus ride. So you can't be 40 miles away. It has to, it really needs to be a neighboring district. So like with hockey, Lancaster to Pew, we partner with that. Alden, we partner with for hockey too. So it need to be something of that nature.
And there's a practical side for practice. You don't want to send any student an hour away every day for practice, because that's an hour away, an hour back. So like merging with a school in Binghamton wouldn't make a lot of sense for us.
No. Yeah. Yep, in fact, that's one of the problems we had just recently. They were signed up to go to a tournament due to the weather that was changed. And so we actually, the athletic director and the coach, spent extra time trying to find tournaments to get the girls into. It happened to be one down in Chautauqua. Because it happened so fast, we couldn't get transportation, but we did have it so if the girls wanted to go and their parents could get them there, they could go to that tournament, just to create opportunities for them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking the athletic director and the district has even to help the girls, do they still go to Alexandria to give them that opportunity?
There is some partnership with the coach there, but who we're really partnered with is Alden.
But I'm saying, in the beginning, did they go there?
No, they didn't go there at the beginning, but that coach has helped. some of the parents wanted, and girls wanted to go to Alexander, but the distance with it,
What was concerning?
that was the concerning part, why the district didn't feel that was a good partnership. Coach, excellent coach there, just wish they were closer. By the time we got there, practice would be half over. Separate Section 2, Section 5, so that would also create another problem, because then if you're competing in Section 5 and you move into the different divisional playoffs, you wouldn't be able to compete in Section 6. So a lot of obstacles there. I wish I could say athletics was easy. It's really not when you get into all the different rules and sections and groups and categories. You'll hear when I give up the awards there, how each sport is a little different too, so. But we're going to keep plugging along on it. And I got about the coach that you'll be hiring who's been working with the girls is really going above and beyond. Still things we're working on improving, communication, like they should have all been signed up for tournaments. I'll say the season started November 18th, should have probably been all signed up at November 18th. They weren't signed up. So now that with the new coach, that individual is getting the girls into tournaments, and and thankfully we have people that know people that we're able to call in favors that are helping with that. And that's where the Alexander coach has been helping us to get into the tournaments that should have been signed up a long time ago. Any other questions with that wrestling?
I have another one.
Go ahead.
So I applaud the parents that came forward to discuss this. And last month when I was sitting here, I had a few questions about the consensus agenda, some of which I didn't ask because I was so fearful that these people that were very anxious to tell us something were waiting.
Right.
Families at home, getting to be bedtime. And I was wondering if we've ever considered, because we do want to hear from the public with feedback, have we ever considered moving open commentary about non-agenda items, maybe a little bit earlier in the meeting so that we can encourage getting this type of feedback, or, because we define the order, right? I'm just wondering if we've ever, because I'm thankful that they stayed, because I was kind of like looking at them thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to leave in a minute, and they really want to have something to tell us. So have we ever considered moving that sooner?
Good question. And you can. We used to only have one one guest speaker section. Years ago, the board said, well, that doesn't seem to work. We want people to speak better. And they also had concerns too that if someone speaks when they're, before we talk about anything on the agenda and the board doesn't do anything, or we take an opposite view or whatever, that they're going to think, well, the board didn't listen to me. Well, what did you do? I came here and I spoke, but you didn't change anything.
But it's about non-agenda items I'm talking about.
Right, non-agenda.
Yeah, okay.
And that's why we put non-agenda items at the end, because we have the set agenda, we want to hear about you, but we don't want it. And that was the logic then. It's policy, so if the board wants to change the policy, they can have a discussion. We had a committee that did it. And also, we put the agenda items where it is, so that during the board discussion, superintendent's report, if we talked about anything in the agenda, that people would hear what we have to say, because it may modify what they're saying from, oh, we're so upset, to thank you, or I'm even more mad now because of what you said. And so that's why they were placed strategic where they are. And if you actually think about it, where the recognition of guests is the first one, the next thing that comes after that is consensus agenda, which is very short.
It can be short, but that's probably, I think it's too short sometimes. I think that there could be more discussion there.
There can be, and that's where we get the questions ahead. And so I'm not saying no to it. Right now, it's dictated by policy. And so that's something definitely the board controls, and if they want to change it and do a committee to do it, or however they want to do it, they can. But that's the logic behind it, so that if someone speaks on a non-item, they don't think we should have added something. And then they get the chance to speak after they hear what we have to say, to make sure what they say, they're still the same mindset.
And the other thing, looking at the agenda, I mean, it is a business meeting, but the discussion, and that is extremely important, happens in our board discussion and news we're sharing. The consensus agenda, when I read it, is removing things that are just supposed to be very ordinary and part of the normal operating procedure.
Right.
So if anything needed to be discussed, that was, let's just use the word for, of important, we wanted during board discussion
Okay.
to have that
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, and that, just to kind of parallel what I was saying, there is a number 9 after we have the board discussion, where it has a discussion on agenda items, but we always hope that any item you want to discuss is put earlier for board discussion, which is why we say, does anyone have anything they want to discuss? So we're aware of it ahead of time, so we come prepared.
The board discussion should be the bulk of our meeting. Do you know what I mean? What, if we got stuff that we need to discuss?
So just out of curiosity, before it was moved to the end, when was it?
It was, I want to say it was before anything. It would have been like right after the student report. There wasn't a student report at it. It was right at the beginning. People would speak. Then after they spoke, they left. And so they never even heard board discussion of what we were saying. So they might have come up and said, hey, we need you to do this. They leave. And then the board talked about it, saying, yeah, we're making the change, but they never actually heard we were making the change because now they were driving home and not hearing the board meeting. And so we wanted to make sure people speaking heard what we had to say on agenda items. We heard what they had to say on agenda items, and then we moved forward.
And it somewhat worked, to your point, how the parents did come, they gave their opinion, and then that became part of this meeting's discussion when the administration and the athletic department went down and did the work, and then now we did discuss it.
But I just shudder to think that if, they had to put their kids to bed at 9 o'clock and they never got a chance to speak, then we would have had no actions that would improve the
Yeah.
whole student experience. So, but we can discuss it more as a board. I was just curious.
Well, that's it. And I mean, and we have in the past, sometimes, depending on the item, let a person go earlier if they have kids or something and they express that. So there are times that the board, at its discretion, can move it.
Okay.
And so we've done that before, too.
Thanks.
The one thing I do want to add in here that is not in my report, and I apologize about it, but I did get all the final information. I talked to my, this is about having a student on the board. So getting back to you, Nora did put out a survey. We did get back from 7, 10, 12 different school districts in Western New York about it, and a majority of them, 7 of them are discussing it. 3 of them use the student government, so like the president would come in, and 2 of them have the representative picked by the board / administration. In talking to my my student cabinet, they had a couple of things that they really talked about that seemed to be a focus we circled around, and that was they want to make sure someone that will participate should be on it. Someone's not just not going to sit here, someone that wants to do that, and they also were worried about it being, a popularity contest. They don't want someone who's really popular get on here. They want it to be someone that's serious and wants to partake in the conversation. Consistently, they said whoever it is should sign up. Consistently in the different views, they said there should be recommendations from the teachers. So it's not just a vote that teachers actually recommend that they feel this would be an appropriate person. That does parallel what is done for student government too. So it's not that, well, one teacher doesn't feel they're appropriate, they're out, but if you have multiple teachers with concerns, then that could have an impact on it. Then all of them had a student vote in there to select a person. After that, it kind of varied. Some people said, well, maybe they should attend a board meeting and then have this to make sure they want to do it. Some people said that there should be an interview by the superintendent afterwards to make sure they're about it. Some of them said, hey, yeah, we should have a top 2, and from the top 2, the superintendent should have picked. But I also know the board said, no, we don't want administration picking it, so I just want to let you know that that's what they said. Other ones said the board would select the final person. Another parts of it said the student vote. When I kind of put it all together, I believe a person should sign up, have the recommendations that they attend a board meeting to know what they're going on to it. The people who, then there should be a recommendation period to make sure they get the feedback, like all the students said at my cabinet, to where the staff feels it's appropriate for them to be in there. I think then it would be nice for me to meet with the people running, just to review with them, this is what it means to be on the board. Then, if they're still interested, you have the student vote, and the person with the highest vote becomes the board member. I'm kind of putting what they're together, because we were kind of scattered all over the place, of what I think would be the best.
I mean, honestly, I think that parallels what we said as a board precisely. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, the way
Yep.
it's gonna be done. You're gonna find, so basically, you're gonna find someone who really wants to be here, who's gonna volunteer, who's gonna be appropriate, and then picked by the students. Because at the end of the day, it's the student representative, so administration should not pick it, the board should not pick it, because it'd be very unfair for either group to say, we're picking your representative. They pick their representative.
Yep. Yeah, we did talk about having, because Jane did bring up the idea of having a person that could sit in if they're out. We did talk about that, and we said that could get interesting, because what happens if the person sitting there that steps in has different viewpoints on a topic? So in one meeting, the student is saying this, and the next meeting, the student representative is saying something completely opposite. So we kind of left it with one person.
And I
That
think,
would be representative.
I think that's really important, because they are a representative of the board of members, and none of us have an alternate. So you're kind of being a student board member, so, I mean, an alternate would not make any sense in that way.
It's senior, right?
No, I think it can be anyone. You have to be 1 year within the school district,
Yeah.
but it could be anyone. Yeah, so if the board wants to make it a senior, you could. I would say just leave it open to people interested. I already reached out to the advisor for the student government to make sure that they could handle all the elections and the advertisement, because it parallels so much what they're doing already. She felt very confident that it could be there, and I did ask her to check the bylaws, so this is a question for the board. If they're the vice president or treasurer of the student government, would you want them to be able to hold two positions? She doesn't, there was nothing she knew of at that time that said you couldn't hold the two positions. She said, in fact, there are some that do. There might be the treasurer here and a class representative.
Yeah, and I don't think that would be our call either. That's their call.
So, does that sound good for everyone?
So this goes in effect July 1st,
Yeah,
2025. I've not said 2025 yet.
I
So
would-
July
I-
1st, 2025.
Yeah.
And
Well, actually, by the state, it goes into effect September. I would want it in place by July 1st, like you said.
Okay.
And the election would be the same time as the student government, so that would happen in the spring. So we'd be all set for July 1st.
And are we planning, Dave Lowry sent out some great information about this topic, and it said that the board may want to adopt a new policy to.
We would need a policy
Okay.
for it, because it
And
changed the
brainstorm
numbers.
what our expectations are for the student. So we'll do that in a work session or a future board meeting?
Every work session.
Work
Could,
session?
yep.
Okay, yeah.
We have the NISBA stuff too,
What do we have?
the NISBA. That number.
Oh, the NISBA stuff that talks about the position, yeah. Work session on
Yeah, the work session just makes sense, so all this stuff can be discussed with like Dave and NISBA, and then maybe, the
meeting.
district clerk can send out one of her, like, what's a good day to meet, and she gives the examples, and we kind of pick one.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jane is just saying the second person was supposed to be an alternate, but a person to get experience, so they have a year under their belt, so they know what to do when they come in. And that doesn't mean there couldn't be someone that is interested that does it. I do see it at meetings, future board members who are interested in being a board member being here, so we can put that out too for the younger people. But we can discuss that during the policy, or when we have the meeting on this.
Okay.
And Nora, if you could, reach out to the policy service we have at Erie 1 to see what they have for policies of how it would change. Regionalization, we were going to have that discussion in January. After I went to the meeting, I think I informed everyone in a Friday memo that it did say that we would be able to get out, not get out of it, but we wouldn't have to partake in any part of the regionalization we didn't want. Worried about the funding, so my recommendation to the board is that we finalize, move forward, keep moving forward with regionalization, and make sure we don't do anything we don't want, and according to the DS, we have full local control of everything. Okay? All right, recognitions. Just a minute, I got to get to them.
Before we go there, though.
Yeah.
So just to clarify it for the NISBA or the lobby day, do we want to touch on that real quick. Who's going to lobby day? Are you planning to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you and Jane are going? Okay, all right. That's what I thought was the case. I'm not, so that I can be here for the board meeting for a party of 5, and I think someone needs to look after the boys, you know? Why I'm, no,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Jim. Bob, Todd. But yeah, so that's February 7th, and it's the same day as a board meeting.
February,
7th? 12th.
12th.
Sorry, it is the 12th.
Yeah.
It's
And
the same
Jane is
day.
going, she did put a thing here that she
Okay.
would be going to the lobby
Okay.
day.
And you're gonna go too? Okay, all right, great.
Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else that she has sent me.
Because 2 years
Um,
ago, we tried to drive back
Make it to the meeting.
dangerously on the 90 to get,
we made it.
we made it.
We made it, but-
It's probably not something that I would entertain doing, so I just wanted to make sure we had enough people here
Yeah.
on that day.
Yep, and I will be going to
Okay.
Albany the next month in March, I believe it is. Nora just got me signed up for the superintendents when we go.
Okay,
All right, recognitions. Yep, okay. So I received this email from a judge that was there. I happen to be a staff member here too. Western New York Regional Cardboard Arcade Challenge. Miss Wadoka's sixth grade students went in a field of 81 teams, 218 students, 12 schools. Iroquois teams took home awards for best engineering and pitch excellence. I think it should be called excellence in pitch. So we had 2 of them that we took home awards in. So congratulations to her class. The next one here is the fall 24 Creative Task Competition, which is in the School of Computer Science at Carnegie Mellon University. Flynn and Jonathan took 3rd place nationally. So congratulations to them. It was incredible graphics, interactive programs, and adding external elements, imaging and sound. So congratulations to them. The Family Support Center is partnering with Horizons Health Services to provide in-school counseling services. So Horizons Services offers individual and family counseling services on site or via telehealth. This is in addition to the service provided by our counselors. And we will have the report next week, will be the second report from our Family Support Center. The Red Hawks Nest Project has surpassed its goal of $140,000. You've seen that they're up to $154,000 the last I saw. Due to the generosity of our community, our intermediate students will have a vibrant, inclusive outdoors space to enjoy all. Thanks to Lauren Cashmore, who has really spearheaded and been a force in doing that. The Almas Kiwanis Club, the Butterfly Foundation, and I believe there is actually even a committee for the Red Hawks Nest Project. Congratulations to our high school chorus, who despite the snow cancellation in December performed last week at Our Lady of Victory Basilica. Excellent performance. I think you were there even for that. Did you have something to, no?
Go ahead.
Keep going. All right. Iroquois High School Unified Polar Plunge raised $24,000 in donations to the direct benefit of Special Olympics of New York. Mr. Lauber, our unified athletes and staff members and volunteers in this unified program. I know there's a push to have the whole board go and jump in that chilly water. I saw some crazy people, Bob and Todd, sitting in buckets of ice water, preparing for it already. I do not like cold water. But I believe you've gone in a few times for the polar plunge. Iroquois football boosters. They adopted a family for a Christmas operation and supported 5 children in the community. And the Grinch even stopped by. I'm still trying to figure out who the Grinch is in the district. Ugly person, though, I'd heard. National Honor Society. Gifts will be taken to the Rural Outreach Center. So this was back December 16th. So congratulations to them for the gifts and the support they give. This was the Red Hawks project again. Which one's this? This is girls field hockey, all Western New York for 2024. Layla, first team, all Western New York. And then in Division 2, first team, Ella and Lola. And then in All-State first team was Ella again. The next one is boys soccer, first team, and in Division 2, first team was Caleb and Logan. Then we have girls first team soccer, all Western New York. And in that, Division 3, we had Molly and Ava. Congratulations. For girls volleyball, all Western New York first team. Leah was the first team, all Western New York. And then we had all ECIC first team, Leah again. And then Division 3 first team was Shauna and Jillian. And then we had a lot of people successful. Western New York football first team, I got to go, there's a whole bunch of sections here. Class B, co-offensive player of the year was Justice. And then first offensive was Justice, Sam, Gavin, Nick, and TJ. And defensive was Richard. And that's what I have for recognitions. Thank you.
What I wanted to say is what I think that's really amazing about that is like, it covers everything from academics to athletics to, people giving, our students giving back to the communities. And it also is, the Nest project was really cool that they did that, because as we remember that was when we were passing that, there was a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. And it showed between the district and then members of the community getting together, that's going to be a really awesome thing now. So it just shows it from what our students and our administration and our teachers do, and that covered everything from the community to academics to athletics. I think that's really kind of cool.
Yep, beautiful. I'm all set.
Okay, now we are...
Unless you want me to talk more.
No. Now we're going to move on to recognition of guests. We do have an individual who would like to speak. You're up, Chuck.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm glad you're taking the comments now because my comments have changed somewhat because of your discussion. Not a lot, but they have changed. I am happy that you're looking at one proposition to go out to the voters. Two propositions historically have not gone well. At the board meeting when you were talking about the capital project, and you were talking about, I think it was the last board meeting, what's the effect of kicking the can down the road? First off, when you're dealing with a capital project, you guys must absolutely know what is absolutely necessary, has to be done, no questions asked. Everything else, don't consider it now. What absolutely has to be done? I heard a lot of examples people were given with households and things like that. Let me give you one. Household has 2 furnaces, we'll use a business, has 2 furnaces in it. One furnace dies. It's got to be replaced. I've got the money to do that. So I'm going to replace that. But in the meantime, while I'm doing this, the motor on the other furnace goes. Now, should I replace both of those furnaces? The first furnace is beyond repair. Burners burned out, motors burned out, wires burned out, have to do it. No cost to me. The second one, I find out that it's the blower motor. Now, these furnaces were both purchased at the same time. They both have exactly the same useful life listing. However, that furnace number 1 went to hell a couple years after what its stated useful life was. Both were maintained. The second one, the only thing that went on it was a blower motor. Now that blower motor is going to cost me $600 as opposed to $8,500 for a new furnace. To get the new furnace, I'm a small business owner, so I have to go into debt for it. So now I'm going to be paying for a new furnace that I really didn't need to buy when I could have replaced a blower motor for $600 and waited until I then had enough money to pay for it. What is the effect of pushing that can down the road? You're going to save the taxpayers' money. If you went forward with this second proposition for $17 million, you're putting the taxpayers on the hook for whatever the term of that bond is. If it's a 30-year bond, 25-year bond, 15-year bond.
Quick, I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone here. We're approaching 3 minutes, but in the past, the board has always, entertained allowing people to speak longer. We're at 2:41. I would just like to say, can we allow Mr. Speck to finish speaking? Everyone agrees?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Now, getting back to it, the $17 million that you want to spend, it's going to cost the taxpayers for all those years. So their bill is going up that amount. Now, I saw a lot of things on the capital project list that I would have questioned, is this necessary? Now, would it be nice to have heating systems that were all upgraded all the way along the line? Fantastic. It would probably make it easier for our maintenance guys. That's not what we're here for, to make things easier. Does it work? Is it in danger of breaking tomorrow? Anything can break at any time. But is there a chance of a catastrophic failure between now and the next time you want to do a capital project? So if you kick the can down the road for those items that you can kick the can down the road for, everybody says, well, it's going to cost more 5 years from now. You're absolutely right. I used the figures that were in the example that you guys got at the last meeting of a 6% per year escalation on the price. So we take your $17 million project that you want to do today, and if we kick it down the road, we're going to take that $17 million, it's going to end up costing you $22.5 million with the 6% increase over that 5-year period. Oh my God, we're costing the taxpayers more money. Are you? Because at the end of that 5 years, you're going to get that $22.5 million project done for $6.75 million rather than the $17 million you were willing to put out to the voters. So those are the things you really have to think about. You definitely can't kick things that have to be fixed, but you need to question those things. How much more life can we get out of it? When I was on the board, we had a program where the buses we were transitioning buses every so many years. I forget if it was 10 or 12 years. And so we asked about it, well, is it really necessary to do that? I mean, my kids have 2 identical cars. One car's falling apart, one car's, brand new. The same thing happens with our buses. I believe you had them do a study on what the maintenance was, costing us, per bus. Could we stretch that from 10 years to 12 years and not cost us additional money because of the repairs that were being done? We came up with a happy number, but when we buy new buses, when that bus hits whatever that timeline was that we determined in doing the maintenance study, that's not the bus that's going to get traded in necessarily. You're getting rid of the bus that you're having maintenance problems on. And that bus might only be 5 years old. So, really stop and think. And in addition to that, you were considering putting out a second proposition, which is great. Let the voters, decide on it. And if they decided yes, down the road, you guys have to deal with electric buses. We still have virtually no information on the state from it. How much aid how much is that going to cost the taxpayers? And where's that money going to come from? It's got to come from the taxpayers. You saw the budget presentation tonight. 0% increase in your aid. Aid looked like it was actually reduced from the year before. Down to $9 million. You're not going to have a happy budget season. The state is in serious problems, financially. Doug mentioned the GEA. They never repealed the GEA. They stopped funding it with our tax dollars. So hold on to your hats. We've got over or approximately 70% of our community do not have kids in school. So you're relying on a whole lot of people that really have no vested interest in our school, other than if they wish to, maintain property levels, things like that. But yet they come out and they support us year after year after year. But if you screw up, those are the people that come out and you'll get that no vote quicker than you can think. Doug mentioned that project, I don't know how many years ago it was, a long time ago, but $50 million project. The community recognized, hey, this would be really nice, but it's totally unneeded. And fortunately, they voted it down. So I just would caution you to be careful, going forward. Really ask the questions and dig into this stuff. I hear, oh my God, our kids are going to freeze and, their rooms are going to be flooded and they're going to have to go to school with, umbrellas because the roofs are leaking so bad. Really? If we let our buildings get into that kind of condition, we should all be fired and ashamed of ourselves. The fact of the matter, we don't. The systems in our schools are probably maintained better than any of the systems in your homes. We've got dedicated people that's what we pay them for. That's their job. We do it when we think about it or when something breaks. So again, just be careful. We've got a great community that continues to support us year after year after year. Just don't cost them unnecessary funds. The state is pushing enough of the burden back on our local taxpayers. So, I would say give them a break, do what needs to absolutely be done. Also timing. Hopefully you're going to hit a good time. A lot of school districts that have been doing projects, it has not gone well from them. And it's not just because costs are going up. We've got the stadium. The stadium has pulled so many contractors, and so they can demand the prices they want. Hopefully the majority of that will be done by the time you guys go out to bid. From 17 million to 23 million with no tax increase, I would question that. Only because, geez, that's a big number. Why didn't we have that number, in the first place to go out with? Another thing that you should look at that, was clearly given to you is and again, I just took the numbers off your sheets, but just looking at the propositions, do you know that you've got 55% added to the cost of the project? 55%. You get a price from somebody to do work on your car, and they say, well, it's going to be $2,000. Are you going to add 55% to that number because something could go wrong? You've got 18%, that's over a 3-year period. I want to be clear on that. In escalation, cost escalation. You've got 10% in design contingency. You've got 5% in construction, which is very reasonable. And then you've got 22% in incidental budget. That's 55%. That's a lot of money to be paying out for, and I'm sure that's probably where some of the $6 million came in, tighten down on those lines, ask those questions. So thank you. I appreciate you letting me go over. I don't mean to, drone on, but, just be conscious of, your community and your taxpayers. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I know I can, but I want to go home. Thanks.
We are going to move to discussion of agenda items 11.01 through 23.05. I would just like to thank the Charities and Aid Foundation America for their donation of $150. And on our agenda items, the discussion, I can tell Dave wants to say something.
Yep, just real quick, I just want to welcome Jennifer Vito. She's joining us as a teacher aide. She'll be in the intermediate building.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the consensus agenda. The basic purpose of the consent agenda is to act upon routine matters in an expeditious manner. Items placed on the consent agenda are determined by the board president and vice president in cooperation with the superintendent, and those which are considered common to the operation of the district and normally require no special board discussion or debate. Board members have the ability and the responsibility of reviewing the consent agenda ahead of time. A board member may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed and inserted at an appropriate place or on the regular agenda. The president will present the initial motion followed by a request for a second. So going on to 10.02, is there a request to withdraw any items from the agenda? Okay. Going on to the next one, is there a request to add any items to the agenda? Okay, the superintendent recommends the approval of the consent agenda. Can I have a second? Okay, all in favor? So there is 5 of us in favor and 2 are absent. I just gotta flip these pages. Okay. Do we have any guests in regards to topics that are not on the agenda? Okay. Can I have a second motion to adjourn? Okay. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, but I have to do the first. Oh, okay. Okay, first of all, I'm sorry, I apologize. Is there anyone executive session?
Yeah, I thought we were going to be having one. No?
No,
No.
not that one.
I'd like to have an executive session,
Okay.
actually. Yeah.
So there's a motion.
Not long.
Is there a second? All in favor? I guess we're gonna go into, it's
Oh, sorry.
5 then to 0. Yes. So when we come back from the executive session, we will only come back to adjourn the meeting. So there'll be no further discussion at that point. We have to have it to discuss.
What's the selection?
It has to be to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
So you know what I want to talk about, so what?
I would have to say discipline.
Sure.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was the first and Heather was the first, the second? Okay, all in favor? So 5 to 0. So now that when we come back, we will only come back to adjourn the meeting. Okay, we are now going to do adjournment take 2. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Can I have a second? A motion, first by Todd, second by Heather. All in favor? Everyone is in favor, and that is 5. So we are adjourned.